This is Rick Rowe for Rural Investment Media and the Rural Classroom. Presenters of the 2025 Rural Natural Resources Investment Symposium in Boca Raton, Florida, or from the comfort and convenience of your own home. The conference takes place July 7 through 11, features well over 50 hours of very valuable but very dense programming. To that end, subscribers who attend either live or online will have access to the conference recordings for a full year. By the way, you'll need access to those recordings because we're going to give you more information than you can possibly consume. Further to that end, unlike any other conference I know, before the conference, we introduce you via interviews like this to all of the exhibitors and all of the speakers. This will allow you to utilize the 50 hours that you spend at the conference much more efficiently. You need to understand that every public company exhibitor, including those represented by the Inventa group, are owned in portfolios owned or managed by myself. What that means is that every exhibitor has been vetted. This is at once a disclosure of a conflict of interest and, in fact, bragging on my behalf. At every other investment conference I know of, the qualification to be an exhibitor is merely a check that cashes. At the Rural Investment Symposium, we have in fact vetted all of the exhibitors. This allows me to make the following offer to you as attendees. If for any reason, whether you attend via live stream or whether you attend live, which would be my preference, to the extent that you don't believe that we have earned the tuition that we've charged you, we will cheerfully refund all of your money. That's it, an unconditional money back guarantee. So let's begin the process right now. Today I'm welcoming back an old friend and welcoming two new friends who represent collectively the Inventa Group, a group of public companies in the exploration business. The group is headed from our purposes by Craig Parry, a veteran of our conference, and one of our living legends, a person who has been part of teams who have built multi-billion-dollar mining companies from scratch, generated past investment successes. So let's begin the process of interviewing the people at hand. Craig, we're going to begin with you. You're a veteran of our conferences. Tell us something about your past successes in mining, and tell us something about why our investors, frankly, should care about your answers to the questions that follow.
Yeah, hi Rick. Great to be back with you, and certainly great to be, presenting again at your conference this year. You've been a wonderful supporter, and I think your conference is really one of the leading, if not the leading, mining investment conferences today. So it's a real pleasure. Look, Mike and I have, our most recent success, I suppose, and it's still a work in progress, is certainly Vizsla Silver, and Mike will be talking about that because we're doing something very, very special there at our Panuco project in Mexico. But past successes, I started a company called Tiger's Realm Coal. We built a world-class coke and coal mine in far eastern Russia for our sins. We then went on to start a company called NextGen Energy. NextGen, we discovered the wonderful Arrow uranium deposit in the Athabasca Basin, true tier one project, now a sort of $5 or $6 billion company. Out of that, I moved to Canada, and we led the spin out of a company called ISO Energy, where we discovered another uranium deposit called the Hurricane uranium deposit, and that's now nudging up against $1 billion valuation. And in the meantime, I became the chairman of Skeena Resources, and of course, we're very quickly moving the Escape Creek project in British Columbia forward into development, and that will be one of the world's great gold producers. We're looking at 450,000 ounces of production per annum. And then Mike and I partnered. Simon came over and joined us a few years ago. We're quickly building that Panuco project and advancing that into what will become one of the world's great silver producers. We've got a number of other companies as well. Vizsla Copper is something I'm heading up at the moment, and we're making great inroads into becoming a copper producer there. And we've got some big news over the next couple of months coming out of Vizsla Copper. So it's a very exciting time. We're super bullish on metal prices. Of course, we've seen record precious metal prices recently. We've seen record copper prices, and despite global ructions, those prices are still hanging in there. So I think it's an exciting time to really get positioned in the mining sector and in the junior mining sector particularly. There's opportunities everywhere. So we're excited to get down and present with you and work with you again down in Boca Raton, Rick.
Michael, tell us something about your background in mining and why people are going to be particularly interested in the answers to the questions that you bring up.
Absolutely, and thank you, Rick. I'm very happy to be here and being at your conference in the future here. So, my background is a little different than Craig's and Simon. I studied business in school, and my first role outside of school was actually at Pretium. I cold called the team there, and I annoyed them enough that they gave me an internship to start out. That was very exciting. It set very high expectation for what junior mining companies were like, and I can tell you after that, nothing was really comparable to what they were doing there at Pretium. But after Pretium, I worked for a number of different groups and really trying to teach myself and learn from mentors how to structure companies, how to finance companies, what makes a project good, what makes a project bad. And I was fortunate enough in the mid 2010s to be introduced to Craig Parry just as he had moved here to Canada from Australia. And we hit it off immediately, and I asked Craig to mentor me, and through that actually was connected to Simon, and was benefited from his mentorship as well. But Craig and I started a little company called Cobalt One, and we brought in a very small group of investors outside investors, and those investors saw a return of about 2,500% in a matter of 9 months. We sold that company to an Australian listed company, and it was my first role as a president and CEO, and that was a screaming success for shareholders there. We parlayed, of course, that success into starting both Inventa Capital and Vizsla Silver. And with Vizsla Silver, we started with an IPO at 15 cents, and of course, recently we've hit a high of $3.50. So shareholders have enjoyed another nearly 2,500% return there. So we have a track record of creating a lot of value for shareholders, and I think it comes from a combination of all the talents that you see here today on the call.
Simon, same question. Tell us about yourself.
Sure, Rick, and thank you very much for having us on today and being part of your conference. I guess my background's a little bit different, again, from Craig's and Mike's, and certainly have much less experience in the junior mining sector and in the exploration sector. But I graduated as a metallurgist a long time ago now. I started my career in operations in Australia. Through that, I fell in love actually with construction and the development of new mines. So I spent the first half of my career actually on sites around the world, building mines in various roles, from sort of construction supervision through to project management. About 15 or 16 years ago now, I decided I needed a change and joined a company called Ausenco. I joined it at the perfect time to capture the downfall from the global financial crisis, just after we had an enormous amount of debt and we bought 3 companies. But then lived through, the boom that followed the GFC for metals, and then into the next downturn, which is where we actually privatised the company. That was a really unique experience. We took the company, we had about 3,000 people at the time. We dropped down to about 1,000 people, and then once we privatised the company and really refocused the business and our strategy, we were able to grow successfully over the next 10 years or so. Grew back up to around 4,000 people. Privatised the company at a valuation of about $140 million, ended up selling it at the end of 2023 for just on close to $1 billion. So it was quite a turnaround, and really, all based around the mining industry and bringing a different model to the mining industry, particularly in North and South America, focusing on how to generate the best value and return on investment that you can from a certain property. How you can actually make money through all swings of a cycle. We know this business is very cyclical, and we thought that was really important. So that was our focus. That sale in 2023 was let me come and join Mike and Craig at the time. As you can hear from our shared accent, Craig and I, well, you could probably guess, have known each other for a long time. I met Michael in sort of 2017, and they were kind enough to include me in Vizsla Silver or Vizsla Resources from the start. It was great to be able to come and join full time.
So a couple immediate observations for you, Simon, sort of like myself. You worked a couple decades to be an overnight success. That seems to be a theme in the mining business. And it seems too at Inventa, if I'm understanding what goes on, Craig tries to find stuff. Simon, you try to build the stuff that Craig has found. And Michael, you try to keep the train on the rails. Is that basically what I'm hearing?
I'd say so. Yeah, sounds
Uh,
about right.
let's talk about because you've presented yourself as Inventa Group, and I should say at this point in time, we've talked a lot in the Rule Classroom about the desirability of high quality groups of companies, in effect, merchant bankers that provide things like lead orders and shared services and access to opportunity. So let's talk about why investors should care about the role of Inventa Capital, about Inventa in the Inventa group of companies. Tell us, and I don't care who answers the question, tell us the sort of mission statement for Inventa and how Inventa would like to be known to the investment community.
Yeah, I might kick off and then hand over to Mike, Rick. I suppose there are quite a few groups in Canada similar to ours. Of course, Robert Friedland's Ivanhoe group of companies, John Robbins' Discovery group of companies. What we recognised is that, firstly, we've got a great team of technical people, particularly at the front end, geologists. We've got some of the world's best geologists working with us, guys like Dr. Chris Leslie, who I think is one of Canada and indeed the world's best porphyry geologists. So we're quite good at acquiring projects and exploring those projects. Sometimes it goes okay, other times it goes very, very well. And certainly at Panuco, as an example, we've found, I think, what probably is the most significant silver discovery in the past 20 years, and that's growing all the time. But we differentiate ourselves from a lot of these groups around the world in terms of mining capability. Having Simon come on board from Ausenco, and Simon, it's worth noting, I think Simon's probably led the build of over 40 mines around the world, a lot of those, tier one or world-class mines. So we've got really an unprecedented capacity to build projects, and that's what we like to do. We're all about finding and advancing quality projects all the way through so that our shareholders have the opportunity to capture every dollar along the investment path and cycle for mining projects. So with Simon on board, we've got that capacity. Simon and I are getting a bit long in the tooth, a bit grey haired, so we need brilliant young people. And Mike fits that bill. Mike's very quickly risen to prominence in terms of leading companies and financing them, particularly. At Inventa, I think we've now raised over $400 million over the last 4 or 5 years, and that will continue. So, what we'd love to do is build a conglomerate and build the next world-class major mining business. And that differentiates us a little bit from a lot of the groups here. A lot of people, will explore and hope to sell their projects. We're not doing that. We're really about building a major mining enterprise here.
Thank you. Let's. I think that was a great overview, Simon. So, or pardon me, Craig. So, thank you for that. Let's go into the inventory now. Let's talk about the companies in whatever order you want, and whoever you want to do it. Give us an overview of the public constituents of the Inventa Group.
So, I think probably the best way to talk about this is, first of all, the company that really started it all for us was Vizsla Silver, and from that we were able to do 2 very successful spin-outs of that company. But Vizsla Silver is, we have a vision of building the world's biggest and best silver company out of this Panuco district. It's unlike anything that we've collectively seen as a group. It has the foundation of tier 1 producer just in the western portion of the property, but the land that we have in this district that's been severely underexplored could very well be the foundation for an incredible producer. And of course, we're looking to grow beyond that. So from Vizsla Silver, we've spun Vizsla Copper, which of course Craig's talking about here. We have big visions for Vizsla Copper. We also very successfully accreted a huge amount of value for shareholders out of the spin out of Vizsla Royalty, which now of course has a royalty over a tier 1 silver project, and I think can become a tier 1 royalty company in due time. We've also, been able, very luckily, very fortunately, been able to capture the team that Craig led out of ISO Energy in COSA Uranium, and Keith Bodnerchuk and the team there are moving forward with great pace towards new discovery in the Athabasca Basin, very similar to the hurricane discovery that ISO made. We have Targa Exploration, which is a company that's made a very early stage but exciting discovery of gold in Quebec. And maybe I'll turn it over, Craig, if you want to talk a little bit further about Vizsla Copper, because I think that's one that's quite topical right now.
Yeah, absolutely, Mike. Thank you. And Rick, probably a little bit foolishly, I've set myself a bit of a task there to try and build a mid-tier copper producer in record time. It's proving more difficult than I expected, but we're in a situation now where we've got a very large resource over a couple of porphyry systems in British Columbia, 4 billion pounds of copper, nearly 2 million ounces of gold in the ground. That's growing all the time, but we're on the hunt for high grade projects, VMS type projects in good jurisdictions. Of course, Canada, we think, is a great jurisdiction. And, we're now seeing authorities here, governments here across Canada, really pushing to permit projects quickly. So we're working on a number of transactions at the moment that will really transform that company and allow us to hit our target of becoming a producer in record time. So we're excited about that. And as Mike hints there, we've got a number of other exploration businesses, particularly focused in Canada, but elsewhere. So there's a number of opportunities, plenty of ways for investors to win. And I suppose at Inventa, the other great thing we do for investors is that we allow them to apportion risk across the different stages of projects. So, of course, at Panuco in Vizsla Silver, we're now moving into the full feasibility study. That project, the economics are so extraordinary that we skipped the pre-feasibility study stage, Rick. Pretty rare to do in this day and age, and we're straight into a feasibility study. So look out for those results later this year. And of course, we've actually commenced underground mine development there at Panuco with our starter project and test mine, which will allow us to get well ahead of the game on that front. And then, things like Targa exploration. We've got some outstanding exploration targets, but much earlier stage, higher risk. But of course, the multiples that you can make on discovery are extraordinary. And that's probably where I've made most of my sort of, money and success is at that pointy end of exploration. But, I'd point you to the fact that if you look at Vizsla Silver today, we've been beaten up a little bit here over the last week, given tariffs and various other things going on, but we're at about $2.50, market capitalisation of 800 or 900 million. Once we're in production and delivering the margins that project will deliver, our valuation should be closer to $5, $6, $7 billion. So this is where we're heading by advancing these projects and having Simon there on the team now to advance those projects the way he can is an extraordinary opportunity for investors to get involved. It's still an early stage despite the advanced nature of the project. So, a huge amount of opportunities across the group, but I'm very, very excited about Vizsla Copper because there's a few things going on in the background that I think will allow us to do what I've been trying to do for 20 years, and that's build a copper producer.
That was a wonderful job of teasing this, Craig. Let's get a little deeper. Let's get a little deeper into it. And let's use Vizsla Silver as the sort of case study, given that it was your first and the furthest along. Tell me something about what Vizsla was when you acquired it. And then, without regretting War and Peace, tell me something about what you're allowed to tell me about what it is today. You've talked about margins. What sort of margins might we enjoy? What size is the deposit? That kind of thing. Talk to me about how you took an option on a silver project and turned it into almost $1 billion market cap, and why you think that $1 billion market cap is real.
So how Vizsla started really, and it's kind of a funny story. And now we have a portfolio or a kennel of Vizslas, and of course Vizsla is a copper-colored hunting dog, high-energy hunting dog that I got as a puppy when we were incorporating the company. And we had this basically a shell that we were looking to acquire projects, and I would go out and look for things and bring it back to Craig and Simon. Oftentimes we'd be meeting at the pub on a Friday and talking about what we saw that week. And
That's where you meet Australians, right?
that I had no choice. I had to go to the pub. But so we had this, this idea that we would have a high energy company that was hunting for the next best project. And, we really had three commodities that we liked. It was copper, gold, and silver. And of course, we really like silver because of not only the precious nature of the metal, but also the electrification aspect. And that applied, of course, to copper. But, I was traveling all over the world. I was going to Chile and Africa and even parts of the United States looking for the right project. And I was in Toronto on business, and a friend of ours, actually a friend who had sold us the cobalt project in the first place, sent this presentation across, and he said, "Mike, you have to look at this the silver project in Mexico." I said, "Okay, well, where is it?" He said, "Sinaloa," and I said, "Oh, Sinaloa." Isn't that dangerous there? And a few days later, Craig and I jump on a plane and we get down there and we found out, it isn't dangerous. It's a direct flight from Vancouver. It's beautiful. It's the people there are wonderful, and that was just leaving the airport. But an hour later, from the airport to the project, we came across this district that was just incredible. It was just spectacular, and I knew that because I could look and see how Craig was responding as we were driving through these road cuts as a geologist, and I just saw his reaction to what was very clearly, a huge hydrothermal event happening above all of these old mines in this district, and the fact that there had been maybe 20 drill holes in the history of the project from 500 years ago when it was first discovered. So, we witnessed this kind of paradox of a very maybe not advanced, but a true, past producing district that had never ever had a fair shake in exploration, and that was just so incredible to us that we figured we'd take any option on it. If it was 50 million, 100 million, we thought it was going to be worth it. Turns out it was a $43 million option, and Vizsla was about a $10 million market cap at the time, and that was 43 US and 10 million Canadian. Everyone thought we were insane. No one thought we were going to be able to raise the money. It was, I think, $14 silver at the time. I remember being, not escorted or laughed out, but, strongly encouraged to leave some offices when we were pitching the idea in the first place. And people said, there's no way you can raise that kind of money for a project with no drill holes. So we negotiated a 2-year window where we could, explore and justify to the market the value of this project, which we did in a matter of about 6 months. And we did that during a global pandemic with multiple shutdowns. It was very clear that, once we made that first discovery, that there was going to be many more discoveries, and that the tenor and the nature of these veins were so spectacular that it would support a very profitable mining operation. So that wasn't the end of it. Of course, we had to buy out the option. We did that. We've drilled now over 400,000 meters of diamond drilling on the property without having to ever build a road, speaking to the infrastructure there. And now we have probably the world's best PEA on a precious metals project, where we're talking about nearly triple-digit IRR and a capex that's 1/5 of our NPV. So it's a spectacular project, and maybe I think probably good to turn over to Simon here to talk about how we're going to drive what was a hope and a dream that became a deposit now into what we think is going to be the world's best silver mine.
Tell me, too, about the documented reserves and resources and where you might go from there.
Yeah, maybe that's for Simon there.
Yeah, sure. So, first of all, I think I went to the project a few months after Craig and Mike had first been there. I could definitely see Craig's excitement, but the thing that excited me was where the project was located, 1 hour from an airport, in an area, ringed by 2 highways and crisscrossed with power lines. Literally, we have a power line that runs right over where the first project and first mine will be. So that got me pretty excited to think that we might be building a project there sometime in the future, just based on, Craig's enthusiasm for the geology, but certainly my reflection on the infrastructure and the location of the project. That 400,000 metres of drilling has served us really well. We've been through now, a maiden resource and then 3 updates. We're currently at around 350 or just over 350 million ounces of silver equivalent, measured, indicated and inferred. about 222 million ounces measured and indicated, and that was as a result of an infill program that we ran last year. So we knew that obviously we had to complete that infill program to support the feasibility study following the PEA, and we were really pleased with the results that we saw with that conversion to measured and indicated, and more than the reserve that we'll be able to declare based on that resource, I think will more than exceed the numbers that we used in the PEA, which, as you know, Rick, is pretty rare in this business and really good to see. And this is just the first project. You know, the grade is phenomenal here. We're at around half a kilogram silver equivalent across the project. In some of the early years, we're up closer to a kilogram of silver equivalent. And the result from that is we see in the early years some very strong cash flows. Payback period on the project of just over half a year. So, you know, the economics look fantastic, and the work that we've done since the PEA in terms of that resource drilling and the infill drilling has more than supported the numbers that we came up with there. We are at the moment putting together the feasibility study. We did skip the pre-feasibility study step. We didn't see the reason, or we didn't see the need to do that because we had so much information already. We're coming towards the end of a pretty comprehensive geotech program. And our focus here all the way through has been looking at how we de-risk this project as we move it forward. So when I say comprehensive geotech program, that's what it's aimed towards. It's a lot of orientated core, you know, really testing the different areas of the two underground mines to make sure that we don't get any surprises along the way. The same with the infill drilling. We really targeted the infill drilling for the first 3 or 4 years of production to make sure that we don't, you know, get surprises as we get into production. Because just like we've gone to, you know, great links to make sure the feasibility study is not going to be a step backwards from the PEA, we also want to make sure that the first couple of years of operation don't disappoint and actually, you know, meet what we set out to achieve. And with that in mind, as Craig alluded to, we're actually at the moment developing our test mine. It's a large test mine. You know, it started with a box cut that's about 30 metres cubed, so 30 metres deep, 30 metres wide, 30 metres long, pretty substantial box cut. And we're currently developing the ramp down into the top of the Kapala vein. We've got about a 600 metre long ramp to develop. We're doing that at 5.5 by 5.5 metre dimensions, so sort of mining dimensions. That gives us a lot of information, obviously, around the geotech. It lets us start to really understand how well the block model, you know, correlates with what we're seeing on the ground as we ramp down. And it gets us in a really good position to be able to start mining early as we build the rest of the project and ramp up from there. So, you know, that's been our focus over the last few years, and I think we've got an exciting couple of years in front of us as we come into production.
So, gentlemen, I think what we've done is we've provided through Vizsla Silver a template to our viewers in terms of how it is that you do what you do. If you're, as an investor, interested in a development stage or advanced exploration silver story, there's Vizsla Silver. If you are interested in a project to develop very large copper porphyries or VMS, you have Vizsla Copper. But in addition to that, you have an Archean gold discovery in Eastern Canada and a nascent uranium explorer from a team that's made 2 prior discoveries. To the extent that the attendees at the Natural Resources Investment Symposium and the students at the Rural Mining College would like to learn more, who in particular at the Inventa group should they contact, and how should they reach this person?
Well, the best person to contact, I would say, would be myself, and you can contact me at michael@inventacapital.ca. And our phone number is on the website as well, too, inventacapital.ca. But feel free to contact me at michael@inventacapital.ca.
Gentlemen, thank you for decades of effort on behalf of mining investors, particularly efforts on my behalf. Thank you, too, for your ongoing support at the Rural Natural Resources Investment Symposium. I look forward to hosting you in Boca Raton.
It's always a highlight of the year, Rick, and we thank you very much for having us there again.
Well,
Thank you, Rick. Yeah.
Thank you, Rick.
The contributions that you've made to investors are great. I've been reliably informed by the hotel that I can expect lower rates in the future if I have more Australians to drive up the bar bill. So thank you in particular for that.
We'll be there in force then, beer in hand.